I was what you are. You can become what I am.
Legendarium Green Team episode. We are Green Team, the Patreon backers for the main Tex Kalani Empire flagship that is the Legendarium podcast. This is a book review episode. We're going to be doing a book that came out in 2019 and spread like so much wildfire, really, rather quickly. In the most recent news, it actually won the 2020 Hugo Award for Best science fiction novel. We'll discuss that later, I am sure. And it was a pretty big statement, considering this is the author's first work. The book in question is the 2019 memory called Empire by Arkady Martine. I'm joined to discuss this particular work with supposedly our largest group to date, but that record may have been now nullified to be lost in person. But to a very large group of people. So let's go around the room, say hi to everyone. We are joined by Little Red Book, or LRB.
Hello.
Kipton.
Hey, everyone.
Kieran Fan.
Hello.
And first time newcomer, Befuddled Panda.
Hi, everyone.
And I'm Steed, aka Horizon Brave, from Discord. You two can join us on Legendarium on Discord or Reddit, and if you do consider becoming a Patreon member. So we do have a panel of guests here. So about this book, it's I'm holding it right here in my hot little hands. Memory called Empire. And yeah, so just to go around the room quickly, guys, what did you guys just general quick thoughts? What did everyone think of the book? What was your general takeaway, positive, negative? Nothing too specific, we'll get that later, but what was everyone's overall feelings on it? Buffalo Panda, let's start with you. You're the newcomer, you're up.
Oh no, that's a terrible thing to do.
Trial by fire, apparently.
Well, I will keep it short. So I had really high expectations going into this book because other people that I've seen talk about it really enjoyed it. And so I thought it would be 5 stars for me. While it's not actually 5 stars for me after reading it, I did really enjoy a lot of aspects about it.
Interesting. All right. Heron Fan, what about you?
Yeah, I had really high expectations as well. I shout out to Lady Sweden for recommending it to everybody. Too bad she couldn't be here. We love you. And for the first 60%, I would absolutely give this 5 stars. But I thought the last 40% was quite a bit lacking compared to the beginning. So all in all, 4 out of 5.
I echo that sentiment greatly. And Kipton, what about you?
I also came to this with some pretty high expectations because of how it had been recommended by friends and other people who I admire the opinion of. But I really failed to see where it did things more than competently.
Ouch.
And so 4 out of 5 stars.
And LRB, what's your opinion here?
Well, I started to get really nervous when you started saying things like YA.
Whoa. Coming at my neck, jeez.
No. I don't mean that in a bad way. What I mean is
I know.
Okay. And then it won the Hugo Award. I'm like, okay, so maybe because the only person I got a recommendation from was from Lady Sweden, and she hadn't finished the book yet. And it was 3.5 stars. Like, it started off great, and then it just kind of all fell apart. I mean, it didn't fall apart. That's overstating it. It just kind of petered off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to let everyone know, Lady Sweden. So it seems like all the blame can be put on Lady Sweden for this, and she is.
No, I think I would blame her.
She would not be the person I would blame. for getting my hopes up.
Well, just
Yeah,
so
I
you
have a
know,
different person I'd blame.
Lady Speed is one of my other Discord members. She couldn't be here today to join us here, but so yeah, and just to throw out my own 2 cents, yeah, I sort of echo what everyone else is saying. The book started out great. I love like the feel of it, the theme of it, you know, the sort of vibe I got from it. But it just didn't carry that, and it didn't sort of, you know, capitalize on what it was sort of putting out there. It didn't really do anything with it. Like it presented this great plate of sushi to you, and then once you took it, then it sort of you realize the sushi was like 4 days old, and you know it was, and the rice wasn't even sushi rice. The rice was like, you know, regular
rice.
white rice. Yeah, and it wasn't comfy. Anyway, so okay, so we have the overall sentiment here. So all right, so let's dig in a little bit. This is one of our questions that you guys have put in. If you guys want to, ask this question yourself, or want me to, present it for you, that's fine. So, what are some of the influences that you see are reflected in Memory Called Empire, real life or fiction? What are some things that you can see that were influential, that sort of were turned around into the world that she wrote, Arkady Martine, the author? What are some of the influences that you can see, from the world around us that were sort of put into the book? And let's start with Hiran. Anything from you?
Immediately, as far as fictional influences, I got vibes from Asimov and from Hyperion. I think Kip mentioned Hyperion when we were talking to the chat.
Yeah.
But for real life influences, I don't know how much, from what I've seen, she's had very little academic experience in Japan, but the whole culture reminded me of 10th century Japan. And I learned about 10th century Japan a lot in college. And so this thing was just like, wow, how did she not, I was surprised when she didn't name it as one of her influences.
Interesting. Anyone else getting a Japanese vibe from it? What about you, Captain? What do you think?
I got a Japanese vibe for it, but I didn't think that it was intentionally trying to be a Japanese vibe. It felt like it was like a Roman imperial stance based on a lot of Japanese tropes, but not actually any like cultural landmarks or touchstones.
Mm-hmm.
And then put into like an Aztec setting almost, with blood rituals and very Mesoamerican naming conventions.
That's what that's what I got. I got a very, very strong Aztecian vibe from it.
I mean, there's like 3 things that I would tie to the Aztec or Mesoamerican, and it didn't seem like 3 was enough. But as far as fantasy influences, I also got a very strong Asimov inspiration. Trantor is the galactic empire that I most associate with this book. The city planet. There's also a little bit of Coruscant from Star Wars, but Trantor is definitely much more the book that was Memory Called Empire. As far as the identity issues go, Ancillary Justice was another recent Hugo winner that I think it borrowed a lot from, or it went along the similar lines as. And also the Trills from Star Trek are an unavoidable similarity that I have to draw.
With the Inagos? Or Imago?
Yeah, with the Imagos.
That is
it's a biological version of the Imago machine.
Yeah, that's actually a great. I didn't even put it together. That it is sort of like the Trill rays. Yeah, that's.
Yep.
I didn't make that connection, but that's pretty interesting. What about you, Little Red Book? What do you pick up on anything when you were reading it?
Oh, I never have opinions.
Not at all.
So, I got a very Japanese empire, or at least East Asian empire, as far as the aesthetic it used. The naming system definitely was Mesoamerican. And the Roman aspect, like you could buy citizenship into the empire, so that was very Roman. I don't know what this book was influenced by. I feel like it was influenced by just the general zeitgeist that's out there in the sci-fi world. There's a lot of books that deal with these issues. There's Foundations. For sure is a big one that jumps out. I don't know that she's read it though. I don't feel like she has.
For what? What do you think?
Prelude to Foundations.
Prelude to Foundation basically was this book.
Yeah. But it doesn't feel like she read it. It just feels like she was dealing with a lot of issues that book also deals with.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if just because she read it doesn't mean she's
No,
not
I don't think
copy
that
of it.
I don't think she necessarily did read it. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying like just because she did, like let's say she did read it. If she did it, that doesn't mean she's gonna make a direct copy of it. So
No,
Yeah.
and that's not what I'm
Just
accusing
because
her of.
Pocahontas and Ferngully have basically the same plot does not mean that one is better than the other.
Just because Avatar and Dances with Wolves have basically the same plot. I'm just saying,
sorry.
like,
Can I-
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I just felt like it was derivative in the sense that these are things that we talk about in sci-fi, and we're bringing them all together, not in a kind of half-baked way. That makes me sound like I'm hating on this book because I don't hate it.
No. I understand. I heard an interview from her, and I think she cited Asimov as one of her influences.
Okay. That's fair.
And she is an academic, and she has papers on these topics. But she specifically cited the Byzantine Empire, I think, as one of her major influences, especially with the poetry and culture.
Which is basically just late Roman Empire.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Okay,
Not
Panda.
too historian.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you've been too quiet over there, Befuddle Panda. Let's hear your
enjoying
opinion
the
here.
conversation. Yeah, my note is a little bit different. Like because I haven't read a lot of the classic sci-fi, I didn't feel comfortable like pointing out, what it was similar to. But the humor in this, I did feel like it echoed Good Omens a little bit, more like Terry Pratchett's humor, particularly with some of the names that came up. Where if you remember in Good Omens, like one of the horsemen, he was having a hard time like coming up with his name, and like he came up with some really ridiculous ones. And the one where it was like 36 all-terrain tundra vehicle.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
When I got to that point, I was like, wait,
2E
what?
asteroid.
Yeah.
9 helicopter.
Exactly.
I love the names.
Like, I was not prepared when I got to that. So, yeah.
Do you guys feel like there was enough humor in this book? Because I'll say this: when I got to that part, it sort of up until then it was I won't say very serious and rigid, but it was going in a path where it wasn't as colloquial, and the jokes weren't really there. But then that came about, and it was so like of our world, like terrain vehicle. It sort of was sort of jarring for me, where it sort of took me out of it because it feels so like otherworldly, and and then all of a sudden this bit of humor, which is a bit more on the nose, sort of kind of took me out of it. What do you guys, and just overall in general, the humor throughout the whole book, which isn't a lot really. What did you think of it?
For my personal tastes, I would say no. I don't think there was enough. Especially as the book got on, and I got less and less interested in the story.
Yeah.
But early on, when you're learning about the culture, there are quite a few funny things. Like, I think she's a lot of it's culture shock though. She's there and she's like, I can't believe you guys do this. Like, I think one day they're eating poison for breakfast, and she's like, wow, what a very Texcalanly thing to do, to eat poison and just also eat the thing that keeps you from getting poisoned, which reminded me of blowfish in Japan. And I think they went to a poetry reading, and somebody gave a just terrible poem, and they won. And three Seagrass, who was my favorite character, was like, "Yeah, we need to go make fun of her, and I need some alcohol to do this."
I did like that. Because seeing a poem win purely because of political reasons felt very interesting to someone like Three Seagrass, who believes in this so earnestly.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
just to give the listeners a bit of background here. So the characters in this book are on this sort of would you say it's a galactic empire? I would say it's like this is pretty much like the hub
Yeah.
world of like a
Galactic
galactic
Empire.
Yeah. So and this is sort of like the hub. I think Kipton, I think you alluded to it earlier, where it's sort of like Coruscant from Star Wars, where it's the sort of
Oh,
like
yeah.
the big hub place. You know, it's a huge city. And it's sort of like the height of I don't want to say fashion, but it's a very it's sort of where
It's the height of culture.
it's where culture meets politics, basically, and it's sort of like that culmination. So, and let me ask you this, guys, while I'm on this topic. So the names in this book are very interesting. I'll say that. The names in that the people that live on Tuscalani, which is the Empire planet, they
Bryson,
are what?
before you go on to that question, can we let me and Panda weigh in on the humor?
My apologies. Go.
I didn't think this book was funny. I thought the vast majority of the humor fell flat. The names were funny, but they were too on the nose to be funny.
Yep.
If that makes sense. They were amusing. The only part I thought that was actually funny was the part where 12 Azalea is trying to explain to the cops why he's soaking wet at an appointment with the ambassador. he's like, he's saying all these things, and he's like, "Yeah, actually, well, no, I just tripped into a fountain like a drunk." And that was the only part I thought was funny.
Well, that was pretty on the nose too. That was a little too,
I know. Well, it was
obvious.
just he just went through like a whole bunch of explanations before he got there. And maybe it's because my ex is a cop that I thought that was funny, because that's what people really say to cops.
His character was pretty tragic. It was much more tragic and unheroic than I would have expected.
Oh, okay. Also, by the way, everyone, spoilers are going to be coming ahead. So, if you haven't read the book, spoiler warning right here. So before we do that, let's hear from Fellow Panda. What did you think of? What did you think of the humor here?
Yeah, so I agree with what's been said. Like the humor for me was pretty jarring. It felt like I was having severe mood swings because so much of this book was so serious and like it was getting intense, and then all of a sudden just like kind of blindsided by this line or that line, and it's usually to do with the silly names. But once I came to understand and like expect it, it was okay. There were definitely some giggles, but overall, I would say this is more of a serious book.
Yeah, and the humor in the book was very situational. It was taking Mahit, who's our main character, and putting her into an odd situation that she's uncomfortable with, and that's the humor is generally based around that, or some sort of character doing or saying something kind of silly around the names or something. But and just as I was about to get into earlier, the names in the book are sort of a sticking point for me, because, and just to give you the names in the book are the first part of the name is a number, and then the second part is usually some sort of like flower or some sort of physical object. So let me get your guys' opinion on this, because this is something that kind of bothered me, and I'm curious to see what you guys think of it. So just some of the names in the book are 19 Ads, 10 Pearl, 12 Azalea, 3 Seagrass, 2 Lemon, 5 Portico, 11 Conifer, 30 Larkspur, 9 Maze, 6 Direction, 5 Agate, 2 Cartograph, 10 Lightning, and that's just the main characters, the main big ones. There's many more. Do you think the names work? Because as I was reading this, the names really started to blend together for me, where I had a hard time keeping track of who the hell 11 conifer was as opposed to 5 agate or something. Just an example, but the names sort of, I mean, it's a cute idea. I get what they're going for, but practically it just was too much to, and especially if you're looking at this on audio, it's even a bit more of a leap to have to remember. I guess our human brains make numbers harder to relate people with. What did you guys think? LRB, start with you.
Me?
There's only one little red book here.
I'm just surprised you're starting with me. I thought it was fine. It was a nice little piece of flavor to the setting. And like Seagrass gives this little explanation about the numbers, and 3 means stable and all that kind of stuff, but it's never really come back to what the different numbers mean, and the numbers are so varied. It's like you would need a chart to figure out what the different numbers meant, and we don't have a chart.
Well, I think it also like changes on the generations.
Okay, so but all of that is, so her explanation actually makes it more confusing, and Mahit should understand it anyway. And so I just wish there had been no explanation and we just had the numbers and the name. That's
I
kind
think
of
Mahit
I think
only
it's-
knows what she learned in textbooks.
Yeah,
She doesn't
Also
know
has-
what
she
like
has-
the current situation is at the heart of the galaxy.
I mean, I guess, but she has Iskander in her head. So, oh, did I say that
Not-
right? I think
I mean, she doesn't
Yeah,
really
yeah.
though.
I mean, she kind of does.
Toward the end, yeah, she
That's-
definitely does.
well, no, the whole. Okay,
But this was at the
we're getting
beginning
off topic.
when they
We're getting-
when they
getting off topic.
hadn't finished their integration. They were still
Okay.
very distinct
Okay.
beings at that
I
point.
guess.
Well, also
I have
remember,
problems with this whole thing, but anyway.
Yeah, I know,
Hannah,
I
what
know.
do you think? You have thoughts?
I do have thoughts. This was the thing that I really wanted to talk about.
Me too.
So for me, there are 2 main things, and we already touched on one, which is some of these names work, but some of them don't, meaning that they break the illusion of the story because some of the items that people chose as their names were very relatable. They're of our world. So like 15 Engine, for example, and that stupid all-terrain Tundra vehicle. The other part is because my brain kept wanting to fix the grammar, it kept wanting to make the nouns plural. I was having a hard time at the beginning, just like, oh, this is a name. It's not actually like 15 engines. It's
Yep.
15 engine. It's a name. And that took me a little while to get used to.
on audio, on audiobook, it's even worse.
Oh yeah.
Because you don't have that
100%.
visual. It's you just hear the word 15 engine, and I automatically thought of like a physical 15 engines or something. It took a bit. What about you, Heron?
Yeah, this is one of the things I really wanted to talk about. I personally, this is one of my favorite things about the book was my favorite pieces of the flavor text, because I think it's actually really easy to remember the names because numbers, just one number and then a noun that I already know.
I agree. I found it quite easy to remember the names.
Yeah, because you read a fantasy book and you hear something and you're like, well, is that a name? Is that a place? You have no idea what it is. But when they use English numbers and English letters, I found it much easier to remember. And on top of that, in response to LRB's comments, I think that 3 Seagrass's explanation is kind of like people nowadays in, I guess, mostly English-speaking countries trying to explain their name meanings. So in many other cultures, like names actually just have real meanings inside their words instead of like, I think what's common in America is to find a name that sounds cool, and then like you kind of go back later and find out, what it originally meant, what language it's from.
I
But-
chose both my children's names because of their meaning. So I don't identify.
So
I have a friend named Mako, just after the shark. Mako.
Just
Mako,
after
okay.
the shark.
And he has a brother Orca
Oh no. Why do parents do that?
and a sister Willow.
Hippies.
Pretty hippie. Yeah.
So it just reminded me when I first came to Japan, and like the naming convention is just so completely different, and you could learn some of these names just by looking at it from the kanji. But personally, I love the naming convention. I thought it gave it a lot of flavor.
Well, okay, so I mean, having flavor for the names is one. I mean, that if you want to call it that, it has flavor, I guess. But just from a practical point of view, from a narrative point of view, it just didn't work for me because it was just too jarring. It was just too confusing to have a number, something that's so alien to us. I mean, again, yeah, sure, it gives it flavor, but I right now I'm looking at this list of names, and
I remembered them all.
Yeah.
Like Two Lemon, like I don't even remember who Two Lemon was. Like the names are just so abstract. It didn't do anything for me. It didn't give me any visualization of what the character looks like because I guess we're so used to
Do
having
names usually do that for you?
Yeah, but if I do
Like the person's name is Julia, does that tell you what they look like?
no, but you can have like a sort of myth image. Okay, you know what? I know what a Julia looks like. I know what a Julia doesn't look like. Two
You
Lemon.
don't know what a Karen looks like.
I have no.
Oh, no, don't.
Like you know what I mean? Like you can see it makes it easier for you to put a fictional face to an actual name, not a number.
I have
and
such an image of what 19 ads looks like, and it's burned into my brain. And I only wish that I could have half the style of a 19 ads.
Did he come up as flamboyant to you?
19 ads
she-
was a girl.
She?
Yeah, she's a woman.
She.
Oh, who was
See, that's what I'm talking about. Proves my point exactly.
No, you're right. 19. That's the lady at the end. Who is Euskander's old?
15 Engine.
That's it. No, not 15 Engine. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
My
no,
brain-
he's
15
the
Engine
one
is the
that-
old
the old
cultural
contact.
liaison. 3 Seagrass is the current cultural liaison.
You guys
What am
are
I thinking? Not Azalea?
12 Azalea is
12
the
Azalea.
not quite
3.
scientist who's the friend of 3 Seedgrass.
Right.
That's who I'm thinking of.
Okay. Yeah, he was totally effeminate.
I was. Yeah. Anyway.
Sorry, it's been a
I
week and a
will
half.
say
since
though, so with the culture, I can't say is it Texkalani? Lee?
Oh yeah, you got it.
I don't know how to actually say it.
No, it's Texkalani.
Okay.
The Texkalani. Okay.
I believe it's Texkalon, but the adjective is Texkalani.
Oh, okay. They have like epithets for some people who like are important enough, and I think that part was actually really interesting because it did help give more personality and give you a better idea of what this character was like. So, for example, with 19 ads, it was very much she's very sharp. She's a knife.
Yeah,
I
what
had
was
to
it?
look up
It was
Sorry?
she who gleams like the edge shine of a knife.
exactly. Yeah,
I love
it was
that.
very appropriate. I did have to look up what ads was because I'd never come across this word before. But once
I
I
did
did, I
too.
was like, oh, okay, I get it now. So things like that where they would give a bit more description of that person and how the name really fits them. And speaking of how the name fits, I think like 8 Antidote, once we got to the part where that started to make sense, I did really enjoy that.
And I did like how the more abstract names were often markers of high status. So 8 Antidote and 6 Direction.
Direction.
Those were imperial heirs.
Yeah, 8 Loop.
Yep.
So,
So-
bouncing. Oh, good.
I was just going to say this is something I was not entirely clear on, and I could be just dense, which is possible. But do people change their names, or is it just their parents giving it to them? Because I got the feeling the parents gave it to them, but
The parents give it.
okay, so
You
okay,
can earn an epithet.
right. No, I got that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it wasn't like Two Cartograph was also known as like Maps, I guess colloquially to.
Oh, that was the cutest.
That was cute. I
Yeah.
will.
That was
The nickname-
adorable.
The nicknames are really cute.
Map was my favorite nickname.
Hmm
Little 2 Cartograph. Oh, it was adorable.
Can we talk about language and poetry?
Yes, yeah, that was my. That was what I was gonna segue into next. So the language in the book is sort of plays well, it's supposed to play an important part in the culture of the Tuscalani and how they go about their daily lives and what they do for entertainment. So there's a few scenes in the book where they'll have like I think there's actually like it's not a rap battle, but it's like a poetry slam or something. But they use poetry and the idea of poetry in their everyday life, even to the point of like using it for like encrypting messages and files. And I thought that was really cool. I really like that idea where it even factors in a little bit into a message that Mahit gets that she receives back from her station, LaSalle, and that's where she's from before she goes to Texcalan. And the message that she gets is encrypted, but it's like encrypted in a way that's the first part is just, I guess, like a normal poem encryption, but the other part is more heavily encrypted. But there's a scene in the book where they use this sort of poetry and as like a cultural hierarchy and status to depict how well versed they are and how well they can use words to play off each other. And it sounds like my type of culture. I assume they're probably really good at puns and everything. I probably would like them a lot. But what do you guys? So what do everyone think about the dad jokes? Must be off the wall in this culture. But so what do you guys think of this idea of using language as like the forefront of their culture and as like a status symbol, basically? And do you think they did enough with it? Which is what I'm driving at here. What do you guys think?
I like
I guess.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
This is more like a minor note, but the cipher that she used from LaSalle, that's known as like a book substitution cipher, and typically those used to be used with common household books that like everyone would have, and it wouldn't cause any suspicion if a spy had like that book found on them. So they were often keyed to the Bible. And I find it really fun and interesting to note that the Bible equivalent in this universe is basically rules of grammar.
Yeah,
it's like an MLA handbook, the equivalent of an MLA handbook / dictionary. I really enjoyed that.
My English professors would love this place.
The language is the strongest point, I think, of this book, and it's by far my favorite. And it's part of why I think the last 40% became less interesting for me, because in the first half of the book, it's she's a foreigner there, and she's still not native at the language, and literally, it seems like anytime she meets somebody new, she's always talking about the language and what words they use and what they mean and how it affects their interactions. Like one of the coolest parts of the book, I think, was when the bomb goes off, the first bomb goes off, and you get inside of her head, and she's thinking, and she's like, I hear this word, and I know what this word means in a poetry context, but what does, and you go through her train of thought, and you learn that this means this in a poem, but it could also mean like an explosion, like maybe an explosion of thought, and then that's how she learns the word bomb, and so people are screaming bomb, 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 bomb. And I just thought that was amazing. And it really, for me, living in a culture where I'm not a native speaker, it's like describing my experiences like all the time.
Yeah.
My Japanese is quite good, but it's not, native level. And so I'm constantly learning. And I love the epithets, with the extra names that people have. And I think they're beautiful. And the way she writes them is like the first time Sixth Direction comes on, I had it written down, but I lost my notes, and I just thought that was really beautiful. And then near the end of the book, one of my favorite parts is they're trapped inside of a room, and they're not allowed to escape, and they need help. And so 3 Seagrass is a poetry, slam poetry expert, and she's pretty famous for it. So what she has to do is create a semi-cryptid message that says, I need help, and turn it into a meme so that the person that needs to hear it can hear it. And I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. That was a
The,
really cool part.
the moment where they go viral to escape jail.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's so meta about our internet culture, huh?
Oh, and the poetry battle thing, that is,
Yes.
I swear it could have been taken straight from a 11th century Japan culture, and the whole culture of not being direct and always having these flowery words and different ways of saying things is just absolutely Japan.
I thought that poetry battle part was really interesting because it showed a few things. One, this is how they have fun. So they know how to have fun. It's just very high literature kind of fun. And then second, Mahit was like, "Oh, I want to join in, but I can't because she isn't a native speaker. She doesn't feel like she could be as fluent and as um, masterful of the language to be able to just improvise and join in on the game."
Yep, I felt the same way.
Okay, so let's dig a bit deeper now. So we talked about the naming conventions of the book, the culture that they have. What do you think that and when we know that the author, our Katie Martin, she does have a literary and historical background. So what do you think the overall goal? What's really the point of what she was driving at with this book? There's a lot of talk. We've mentioned it numerous times now. Empires. We talked about the Aztec Empire, the Roman Empire, Japan itself, imperialistic Japan. What do you think she's kind of was supposed to be driving at, or intentionally, or unintentionally driving at with the whole idea of this book, where it's this big, star empire or galactic empire here. And just in case you guys, listeners out there, they don't know, the long and short of it is, there's again this galactic empire. There's a um, smaller society, or I'm not sure if it's even a planet or it's a state, just a station called LaSalle, and it hasn't been annexed yet. It hasn't been taken over by Texcalani yet. They're quite aware of them, but and they even have like a diplomat or ambassador, but they haven't come to the Texcalani cultural imperialism basically. And the young girl from the station, LaSalle, Mahit, she's sort of enamored by the Texcalani way of life when she was growing up. But everyone on her home planet or station, again, I'm not sure what, they're very resistant to the Texcalani cultural tentacle arm, basically, that's reaching out. So, what do you think? With all that said, what do you guys think of the point of the story that she was driving at with Texcalan, its imperial grasp on the other surrounding planets, which I wish, by the way, they would have shown us a little more of. We didn't really get that feel that Texcalan was actually a sprawling empire. But so, what did you guys think of what the whole point of this was and what she was trying to say about the nature of empire? But Fetal Pan, to start you.
This one's actually one that I have the least commentary about. I feel like it was kind of just a reflection of Martine's like academic background, having studied the Byzantine Empire, and she kind of just took what she studied and transported that into a sci-fi setting,
That's fair.
sci-fi context.
Kipton, any thoughts?
I also have very little to say on this. I agree a lot with Panda in that it didn't really feel like the book was actually all that involved in caring about if the stationer stayed free. Like, sure, the main character was, but as a reader, I was not invested.
Because we didn't meet any of them. Like besides,
We didn't, and the people we spent the most time with was just that mustache twirling villain in the Heritage group. And I really didn't care to have his desires satisfied.
And
Oh, I was just gonna say, I was like, I don't see why they wouldn't want to join the Empire with the aliens coming down on them. I mean, I was just like, okay, I guess.
I'm also not in favor of hegemonic culture.
Well, I mean, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, like, I wasn't invested. I didn't care, and it seemed to me a benefit to them to join the empire at that particular point in
Yeah,
time.
They would have lost the Imagos, though. They would
they,
have lost that whole
no,
tradition.
well, okay, no, let's
Okay,
talk.
I'm gonna hold my fire on that too because I have thoughts.
No,
But
let's talk about that. So, would they have lost the Imagos, or would they just be shared? Because
They would have been forbidden
okay, so
and probably destroyed.
I mean, was that
Except
ever
for the emperor.
said? Did they ever say to them, "Okay, we're going to come and take your Imagos"?
I mean, they were declared illegal technology, so I can't imagine they would have just like put them in a museum or something.
So my problem with it is that they didn't really go out of the way to first of all show us anyone on the cell, to make us care about them remaining independent. It was just this sort of abstract idea of big empire equals bad, small station equals good. That's all we were presented
Well,
with.
I disagree.
they showed us Mahit's entire like reverence for the Imagos.
Well, no.
They're such a key aspect of stationer culture.
They also showed us her reverence for the empire itself. She was in love with this place. So from our
Yep.
point of view, all we're seeing is this young girl loving this culture, and then conversely, we're being told, but it's really bad. It's a bad empire. So on one hand, our main character starts off, in love with this culture. So we're like, okay, you will, open the doors and let them come in. But then,
Very guilty love.
then suddenly they're made to be the bad guys in this. But I don't know. It was very two toned. It didn't really convince me that they should be fearing this empire, because aside from being a political mess, basically, I didn't really get a sense of and I guess the idea of cultural appropriation, I guess. But if that was the intention, I don't think she made that clear enough. Like I don't think the whole cultural appropriation argument was
I think
laid
cultural
out.
appropriation was a problem that this book discussed.
Yeah, it was discussed. That's why I'm bringing it up, but it wasn't hammered home.
I don't think it ever occurred in this book.
I think it was brought up, vaguely, but it wasn't like it was never given to us or presented to us in a way that was like, yeah, that's a problem, or that should be a talking point here. It was just they just showed us the empire, said it was bad, and that was about it. But what do you guys think?
I do not think that Arcady Martin was giving a value judgment on empires whatsoever. I think she was showing us an empire and saying it is what it is.
The things they do. Yep.
It's just a force of nature, and we're going to explore what it does, maybe how they fall. But I think what most books go about this is, big bad empire, and they need to put down, or maybe the big good empire who's spreading their influence or whatever. But I think this story was more about a cultural victory and civilization. And I think this book is more about American cultural imperialism. So we have this character who is in love with the Tex Colony Empire, and she's from backwater middle of nowhere. And as Americans, is everyone here American?
Yes.
I am.
Yes.
American culture is everywhere. There are people around the world who just worship American culture because it's in their television, it's their books, it's their movies. And I think that that's really what Arcady was going about and saying, hey, maybe, there's nothing wrong with liking this, but maybe you should also try to appreciate your own culture.
Thoughts?
That's not quite how I thought about it, and I actually think that's a pretty good insight there, Huron. So thank you.
I think it was definitely about cultural imperialism and identity.
It was definitely about identity.
Those are the two things that I think it really most drilled down on.
I agree completely.
I think the identity was made more obvious because of literally the idea of her losing her identity with Yaskander. I think that was pushed, made a lot more obvious to the reader. The cultural appropriation was made, but it never really went. And again, it didn't really go anywhere with it, where it was making it like a definitive statement to me. it presented the question, but then it was just like, yep, that's about it, and then it just wrapped everything up. So it didn't really hammer anything home. I didn't come away from it thinking differently, or having some sort of revelation. It presented the idea, but it didn't really present the questioning and anything that came afterward.
Sorry, Horizon.
At least, yeah.
When you talk about cultural appropriation, are you specifically talking about the imagos when they're trying to take those and use those?
No, I just mean the idea that Tezcatlilan was trying to reach out. Well, yeah, I guess the imagos as well, yeah. But this fact that that Tezcatlilan was trying to, and again, it wasn't explained very well in the book, but the idea that the Tezcatlian culture would have taken a hold of Lecelle and her home planet Station, and wiped out their way of life and imposing upon it their way of life, which is more, what we saw.
I mean, they gave statistics on it.
How so?
They gave statistics about how the younger population primarily preferred Tezcatlian cultural items and imports instead of domestic Lecelle-produced ones.
Yeah, that's kind of the opposite of cultural appropriation, too.
Yeah, that's cultural imperialism, not appropriation.
But they did want to appropriate those machines, the Imago machines. See,
well, one person did.
I think that's one of those
person
things.
did. The Tezcatlian culture as a whole had a civil war about it because they didn't want to.
I think that would be one of those things that, at least the feeling I got, was that people in power would want to make it illegal for everyone else and not themselves.
Yeah, a civil war means that there are two sides, and there's some
well,
people
I know,
fighting for it, right?
but I guarantee you that the general in the sky, I can't remember what his name is, Admiral
One
probably.
Lightning.
Thank you. He would have used it too. He would have used it. He didn't have his moral qualm was more that
19 ads wouldn't have.
She wouldn't have, but the Emperor would have, Tin Pearl would have, and Lightning from the Sky, Admiral Guy.
One lightning.
I
thought it was Tim.
Guys, names are hard. Okay.
I don't know how you could think that One Lightning isn't a militaristic name. That just immediately screams Admiral to me.
Whatever.
I wish we got more One Lightning.
Screams Marshal.
He was kind of like the off-screen big bad.
Yeah, that would have been nice. I liked him.
Yeah.
Well, and just so we all know, there is a part 2 of this book, so some of this stuff may actually be expanded upon. We don't know yet, but some of the things that we're talking about and some of the characters, they may be expanded upon in the follow up. So moving on, what did you think of? So also in the beginning of, which I found kind of not distracting, but they got kind of long winded. But in the beginning of each chapter, there's like not even a quotation, like whole excerpts from other books that precede the actual chapter. Did you guys actually like those? Did they actually add anything to you? Because to be completely honest, going toward the end, they got more annoying. I knew they were coming, so I was like, all right, here's the long excerpt from a random historical event, and then I would have to listen to that for like 2 minutes before the actual chapter would begin. But I know
we're short.
Some of them would factor in directly, but some of them were just kind of like flavor text. So I was like, okay, I get it. Yeah, all right. Anyway, moving on to the real meat of the bone story here. But what did you guys think of these?
I like how there was always one from Lecelle and one from Tezcatlian.
Yeah. They're usually from kind of two sides of the. So I guess like a similar event or something.
Yep. Some of them were communiques. Some of them were post-dated. Some of them were predated. And I felt like it definitely helped set up the mystery and give the reader greater context in the beginning. But towards the end of the book, it became a little repetitive and redundant.
And long.
They were not long.
They were long.
They were less than. They were usually less than a page.
Yeah, for an intro, that's too long.
Less than a page
I'm looking at chapter 9. It's a page and a half before the chapter starts. That's too long, man.
That's
For
not
I guess
much.
we're just used to the Malazan ones.
Yeah, we haven't read
I'm
it.
used to the Stormlight ones.
I don't think there's any that are a page and a half long.
No, but Stormlight has much smaller font.
What?
Minuscule.
Panda, what do you think? This is your question.
Yeah, it was my question. So I wasn't a huge fan. I think some of them were nice to have, like especially when they were referencing poetry that was written. But I felt like some of the information that she was trying to the author was trying to convey through the excerpts could have been woven into the story. But it also felt like the excerpts were maybe, like pre-work that she did to help herself develop the world, develop the characters, develop the events. And those were things that she kind of just said, oh, well, I don't want this to go to waste, so let me just insert some of this stuff here at the beginning of the chapters. And I felt like it was a little unpolished.
I think that it's also probably a little bit of pre-work, and that some of the stuff that she wrote about, especially in the Lacelle Station, would come up in book 2.
Okay. Yeah, I am curious about book 2 because I feel like there are definitely avenues that she could definitely drill in deeper, and I'm curious to see if those are the things she will dive into.
I do want to give her credit for writing one book that does feel like a complete book without having book 2 out. A Memory Called
Yeah.
Empire absolutely feels like a completed, finished book that can stand on its own.
That's fair. Yeah.
And yeah, considering the world that we live in with our many uncompleted series.
Can also say this is really impressive for a first book.
Yeah, I'll admit to that.
Sure.
As much as I have problems with the book, for a first, out of the gate book, I mean, she does have a background in, academia and history. So, but still, even then, and the praise that she got for this book, the only thing that I mean, I think the example I'm about to give overshadows the praise that this book got. But The Martian was a book that was Andy Weir's first book, and that blew everything else out of the water. I don't think this book got as much praise or should deserve as much praise as The Martian. But yeah, it just reminded me of that. The first book that someone wrote was
Yep.
so widely accepted.
I'm also reminded of Ancillary Justice, which won the Hugo only a few years ago and is really pretty similar to this book. And that was also a first book, but I think
Wow.
Ancillary Justice did it much better.
I need to read that.
Yeah, I hear about it. So let me just go over a few things that I and you guys join in as well. There's a few things I pulled out that I really actually enjoyed. I did like the interludes actually, which actually, yeah, let me ask you guys. But so we just discussed the chapter intros, which were sometimes too long and too abstract and didn't really contribute. Do you think the interludes work though? Because I want to say there's about 4 interludes in the whole book, and they're completely removed from the current situation that Mahit's on Tezcalan. They generally go into background about what's happening either on Lacelle or out in space. Did you guys like those? Did they sort of fill in the gap for what was happening in the main storyline?
The interlude with the Heritage Minister was completely unnecessary and a mustache twirling villain.
I don't think she was mustache twirling. I mean, she was. I mean,
she was dragging her fingernails down things.
Well,
which
I
is
know, but she
basically
was
the
morally
mustache twirling
conflicted
for a
about
woman.
it. Morally,
No, she wasn't.
Yeah,
No, she wasn't.
Whatever.
What do you
She
think? What do
she
you think, Jared?
relished that moment.
What do you think here?
I just thought it would come up in Lacelle Station story in book 2, so I enjoyed them enough. They're fun.
Buffalo Panda, any thoughts on the interludes? Did they tell you enough? Did they give you enough of the story that you needed them, or were they just sort of there just to fill up space?
I don't think they were there to fill up space. I think they were there to cover the author. Like, it's something that I notice about her writing is that she explains pretty much everything, Like somebody says something and she'll explain to you exactly the meaning she wants the reader to get out of it. And so she kind of just like makes sure to cover all her bases, and that's what the interludes felt like, to just make sure there's no misunderstanding or doubt about what was happening, where the story was going. So, yeah.
Interesting.
I felt like it
Um,
sapped the mystery out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is such a
Sure.
thing as over-explaining. Yeah. But
I never had to like really question what was going on as a reader by the end of the book. Everything was explained.
Mhm.
Well, I will say this: the idea of like the mysterious alien race that we don't know of, but it's out there somewhere. That actually did lead into a mystery. She probably will explain that away in the next book. She will probably go into great detail and explain everything about them. But for right now, we don't know a ton about them. So I think that's at least a good place that she kind of left open to our imagination, because we've never all we know is that they can't be defeated or something.
Do you
Yep,
think
and
there's
they
a
have a
chance?
characteristic
it
ship
can be
design.
reasonable. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Do you
I
think there's? Sorry,
Oh.
go ahead.
I was gonna say the whole alien stuff, to me, because it was kind of mentioned at the beginning, and then you really didn't hear about it until more towards the end, like the middle-ish, and then towards the end. And now that because if I had just read this book and I didn't know that it was going to be a series, I would feel like, oh, there wasn't, like, that was kind of just slapped in there. But now knowing that there is a sequel, it felt like she's just setting it up for the continuation of the story. And if this had been a standalone, my qualm with it would have been we did not get enough backstory or like interactions. It would have been really cool to see from the stationer's point of view, like more of the interaction that they've had. We get bits of it, and like the what's his name, the minister of the pilots, minor guy.
Yeah.
Like seeing him and
See, now
how
those names I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean,
a bunch of letters.
but we don't see them much.
Yeah, exactly. Like we don't
A lot of
really.
consonants.
I didn't feel invested really in the whole alien thing until it became a point where the author wanted you to feel invested. Where like, oh, this is the way for LaSalle to not be annexed, but still get protection.
I
But I
thought
mean,
that you could really sense the desperation by how little they knew about it and how much they were staking on it.
Hmm.
And like, okay, yeah, these people are really down to weapons of last resort right now. They have almost no political leverage. They're just hoping that this deadly new menace across the like jump gate is equal to the known deadly menace that the Tixkalanli Empire poses.
Yeah, I can see
yeah,
that.
good.
Like that's a real desperate move. And if at the end of book one, that's the only thing I have mystery about. That and like, of course, what will spoilers 19 ads do with her rule? Like,
Mhm.
obviously, that's a mystery, but those are the only two things. Everything else was explained.
Yep.
Do you think there's any chance that 12 Azalea is still alive, or that 3 Seagrass is not totally level?
I really hope not. I'm saying that I hope that yeah, he's not alive, because I found if they bring his character back and he was alive the whole time, it would really cheap. Like, I'm really getting tired of characters dying and coming back so quickly. To me, it really cheapens. I mean, whatever value he added, which wasn't much to me, in my opinion, it sort of takes away from the idea that he died. It was a very unceremonious death, but it's still at least that was pretty impactful, especially on 12 Azalea.
I hope not, but I think there's a strong chance.
Yeah.
I think 3 Seagrass might not be completely level, and she's still using Mahis.
I think 3 Seagrass was actually being pure 11 Lathe.
One more time?
I think 3 Seagrass was being pure 11 Lathe which means that she was being loyal to Mahit.
I think eventually turned into that, but I think that there's still room for her to maybe still use her while being friends. Does that make sense? Or being lovers, or whatever they are now.
Maybe, but if anything, it was only using it in like a personal romantic sense, not or like a sense of fulfilling your ideas about the kind of like cultural liaison that you want to be, that you want to emulate.
Well, we're told over and over again that 3 Seagrass would use whatever she can to, get what she wants politically, right?
To achieve her artistic ideal, not necessarily to achieve whatever she wants politically.
I just don't think we saw that in her character.
Yeah, neither.
In her actions.
I think we did. But I think it's because her aims aligned so well with Mahit's that it didn't really ever come up as a negative.
Anyone else have thoughts?
I don't know. From and this is sort of tangential, but I from the beginning of the story, I had like this cloud of suspicion on like all of the other characters, like all the characters around her, especially close to her, 3 Seagrass included. So when nothing really happened between them, and everything was pretty much hunky dory, I was like, oh, okay, I guess it felt like there was something that was going to be written there to sort of have some divide and loyalty or friendship, because it was very suspicious that I had a very suspicious feel of them, but it didn't really pan out like that. So I don't know. I felt like the relationship between the two was kind of odd, but it didn't really go anywhere. It just kind of was pretty flat from start to finish.
I think at the end though, because 3 Seagrass basically said, hey, I have this opportunity to be the second undersecretary to the emperor, or if you want, I can stay as your cultural liaison. Mahit, like, she thought about it, like she wanted 3 Seagrass to stay with her, but throughout the book we also saw like Mahit having doubts of, could she and 3 Seagrass really be that intimate with each other, really trust each other 100%, because Mahit wasn't Tex Kalani, right? Like, she would never be a citizen. So Mahit making the decision to say, you know what, go take that position because that's what you wanted, right? Like, you wanted to be my cultural liaison, and then you wanted to use me as a stepping stone to move forward in your career. And now you have it. Here's your chance.
That's great.
All right, guys. So let's wrap this up here. Final thoughts. What worked? What didn't work for you? Just quickly, nothing too long. I think we talked about what our main issues were with the book. But final thoughts. Just to wrap things up. What's everyone taking away from it? Are you guys eager? Are you guys excited for book 2? Do you guys now think it's going to be a bit easier to read now that you know the tone of this book? Because I don't think her tone is going to shift much. I think she's found her writing style. So what are your guys thoughts? Where are you at now? With the book, what worked, what didn't work? Here.
I'll say what worked definitely was the prose. Her giving the reader a feeling of a foreigner inside a new empire, and how overwhelming and all of the small little microaggressions that happen in that. And I think she does a really good job of showing us the effects of cultural imperialism, especially on the individual psyche. But other than that, I think the politics were bland and boring, and I've seen it before. But as far as the sequel, yes, I'm very excited to read it.
Yeah, I actually didn't get into that. The politics were very, like, it seemed like they they had an idea. They were trying to do something, but it just didn't. It was nothing. It was nothing really new. Nothing that I haven't seen before. It was kind of just, as I think someone else said before, kind of like just petered out. But Kipton, what about you?
I think that the writing and the imagery of the book were really well done. The world building at the start, all of the discussion of the language and the culture and the first impressions, that was all excellent. But where it started to fall apart is when the shift happened from world building to plot development. And once more of the page was devoted to the plot, I didn't care as much.
Yeah,
because it seemed pretty standard.
Yep, the world building.
Yeah, the writing stayed good. The focus on issues changed, and the interesting parts kind of dried up, and we got too many action sequences.
Yeah, it seemed like you front loaded the book with all of like the cool world building parts of it, and didn't leave enough for the end, where the end focused purely on story and plot, which normally is a good thing, but in this case it was very bland for me. So all of the cool things I think that we all enjoyed from the beginning, all that world building and cultural, investment, it was all in the beginning and it was all in the front, and then by the end of it we were kind of left with a sort of flatter book. But what about you, Buffalo Panda? Are you looking forward to the next entry here?
Yeah, I am. I will pick up the second book. I echo a lot of the sentiments already stated. The first thing that I did notice when I started reading the book was the imagery, and her writing is very, very pretty, very readable, but not over the top. And I would definitely read other things that she writes even outside of this series.
And just to let you guys know, we lost one of our co-hosts here. A little bit book. She's experiencing some audio trouble, but she wants to tell everyone that she is looking forward to book 2 as well. It was a good start, and that she thinks that she'll get better integrating her themes into her narrative. So she's saying that she's cautiously optimistic, if I can read her tone right. So Little Red Book, sorry you dropped an audio for us, but you're still with us, champ. All right, guys. So I think that's a wrap. I think we sort of discussed what we liked, what we didn't like. We have our problems with the book. And it won the Hugo Award for Best Novel. I mean, again, I don't know what it was stacked up against. I can't really consider this a Hugo Award winner, a nominee. Yeah, I can see that. But to me, it was a very good first attempt at a new immersive world. But I don't think she really closed the loop as well as she could have. But I think it's still a really good book. Definitely check it out if you're into new contemporary sci-fi. It's a book called A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Everyone give a shout out. Kai Heron, Buffalo Panda, thanks for joining us for the first time. Hopefully this is not your last.
Hello? I'm back!
Oh! It is a miracle of audio engineering. Little has returned to us.
Yeah, so thanks for the talk, guys. It was a lot of fun. Sorry I kind of bugged out in the middle. Don't know what happened.
We held it down for you.
It's nice to talk with all of you.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Until next time.
Until next time, this is the Legendary and Green Team. You can find us on Discord and Patreon and Reddit. Visit us on Patreon to support us. Thanks a lot, everyone, and take care.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.